Okay, Be'ez Hashem Yisbarach, we begin a new Perek, the 8th Perek of Masechtes Zevochim. It's on the bottom of Daf Ayin Amud Beis. This Perek will be speaking about all kinds of situations where you have different animals from various karbonis, or maybe from animals from karbonis and that are not, or things that are aser, that get mixed. All kinds of mixtures. What's the solution? What do we do? Or is there a solution? And if there is, what do we do? Zok Teilige Mishnah. Kol Zevochim shenis arvu. Any of karbonis that got mixed in with the following two cases that are completely aser b'hana, b'chatois hameisais, with those kinds of karbonis chatos that must be left to die. You cannot bring them as a carbon, and they must be left to die. So as Rashi brings here, this is a halacha l'Moshe Misinai, that there are 5 kinds of chatois that cannot be brought as a carbon, and they have to be left to die. If a carbon chatos gives birth, that baby cannot be brought as a carbon. It's left in a room and you don't feed it, and it just has to be left to die. Or a chatos, which its owner died, so now there's no owner to bring it as a carbon. The third case is tumuras chatos. The halach of tumura, someone tries to exchange and he says another carbon should be a chatos like this, cannot be brought as a carbon. And if the owner already got its kapara with another carbon chatos, and if it got lost and then you find it and it has a mum, so it has to be left to die. So these are the chatois hameisais. Okay, so now a good carbon, a regular carbon, got mixed with an animal that's in this category of a chatos that's supposed to be left to die. Or it got mixed with the shayir haniskal. This is an ox that gored and killed someone, and the halacha is that it must be stoned to death, and therefore it also is aser b'hana. So afila achas biribo, even if it's 1 in 10,000, yamusu kula. You have to leave them all to die, which means that we're not going to apply over here a concept of bittul b'reif, that because there's so many against it that are mutter. We'll see the Gemara will explain the lashon of the Mishnah, but that's what the Gemara's conclusion is. The Mishnah means, so you would say it should be bottle. No, it does not become bottle b'reif, and we'll see the Gemara will discuss why it does not become bottle b'reif. That's the first kind of case. So the point of this case is that the carbon got mixed in with a kind of animal that's totally aser b'hana. Another case, nisarvo, if the carbon, any kind of carbon, got mixed in with any of the following, which are here, the Mishnah is going to bring a list of cases of animals that are not aser b'hana for any person to use, but they're aser to be brought as a carbon on the mizbeach. So it got mixed with b'shar shenevda b'yaveda, with an ox or an animal that an aveda was done with it. Right? An aveda was done with it that makes it aser to be brought as a carbon. Or this is an animal that killed a person, but the thing is, now usually an animal that kills a person, that's the case that we just mentioned, the shayra niskal. It's supposed to be put to death. But over here, you only know that this happened, that it did an aveda with a person, or it killed a person, al pi dechad. You only have one witness testifying about this. Or it's the owner himself that came and admitted this, that my ox gored and killed someone. Now, in such a case, this ox or this animal that did an aveda with a person does not become aser b'hana. It does not have to be stoned to death, because when it comes to such kind of matters in money situations, or here when you have to stone it to death, you have to have 2 eidim that testify about this. So since there's no 2 eidim, so it does not have to be stoned to death. But on the other hand, though, since there is 1 aid telling us, or even the owner himself that admitted this, that his share killed someone, it cannot be brought as a carbon anymore. That's learned out in the pasuk. Rashi brings it the psukim that it cannot be brought as a carbon. Right, so, but even if the owner himself admitted, it will not have to be stoned to death. If he's maida, that doesn't help. I maida b'knas. This is Allah always, when you're maida for something which is a knas, you're potter. But to be brought as a carbon, as soon as he's maida or eid echad, it will be disqualified. So that's the first example for this.
The fact that it killed the third time, that it made it a muad.
Yeah, we're talking about.
That needs aidis.
Yeah, correct. It has to have eidus dafka, not with 1 aid. Another case, beroiva v'nirva, an animal that was sodomized someone, or it was sodomized by a person. So over here in these cases, this is also another example of an animal that it's mutter to have anah from it, but it cannot be brought as a carbon on the mizbeach. Most of the things that it brings here that are it's possible for the mizbeach is learned out from the first pasuk or the second pasuk in Parshas Vayikra, where it says that you should bring the carbon of mina behema, mina bakar, mina tzayin. And from that pasuk there, the Gemara darshans to exclude most of the cases brought here that they will not qualify for a carbon. Or b'muktzeh, an animal that was set aside to be served as avodah zarah. It does not become asur to have anah for a person, but it becomes forbidden to be brought as a carbon. Or v'nevad, it was actually worshipped. An animal that was worshipped as an avodah zarah also does not become asur b'anah for a person. The Gemara in avodah zarah says that a live animal that someone worshipped does not become asur b'anah, but it does become asur to be brought as a carbon. Be'esnan, an animal that was used as a gift in a case of znus, he's exchanging znus for this animal. Or a mechir, the lashon the pasuk mechir kelev, an animal that was exchanged for a dog. Also, the pasuk says cannot be brought as a carbon. Or bekalayim, an animal that was born from a hybrid. Rashi says a shoyr and a kesev. When it says in the pasuk shoyr oy kesev, that actually excludes prat leklayim. It's not the animal that's born from a hybrid. Ubetreifa, or an animal that has a defect that it cannot live. Also, these are cases that's mutter b'hana, but you cannot bring it as a carbon. And the last case, ubiyotze dofen, an animal that was born as a yotze dofen, a cesarean. It's learned from the pasuk ki yuvaled. It has to be born properly and not a yotze dofen. It's not fit to be brought as a carbon. Okay, so now in all these cases, when you have a carbon that got mixed with any of these, so what do? Yiru, you allow him out to go and graze, achi yistovo, until it gets a blemish. And now the halacha by any carbon is that a carbon that cannot be redeemed. It could only be redeemed once it gets a blemish. Therefore, you have to wait until it gets a blemish. And now v'yamachru, you sell all of them, but now everything that you sold, one of them is from an animal that was a carbon here. You don't know which one it is. So now you sell it, and then v'yavid b'dmei hayafish behen, you take the value of the money of the best of these animals, because it could be that carbon that got mixed in with all of them was from the best quality of all those animals. So you take that amount of money from the best of the animals, from that min, and you bring it as a carbon. For that min, for the carbon that what it was. If it was an oil, if it was a shlama, whatever carbon it was that it got mixed in, you bring from the best quality of the animal, the money of the best quality animal as the carbon. Okay, now the third case, nis'arvu b'chulin, if you have a carbon that got mixed in with another animal that's chulin, tmimim, it's actually a chulin that is whole, has no blemish, that is fit to be brought as a carbon. So what do you do over here? You don't know which one is the carbon. So you machru hachulin litzarchei oisiamin. So you sell this chulin, you sell the chulin animal, and for who do you sell it to? You sell it to someone that has to bring a carbon for that min, and then he brings from the money he brings the carbon of that min of the behemoth that got mixed in with it. If the case over here is kochim bekochim, if you have one kochim that was mixed in with another kochim, meaning two karbanis oila, are the same min b'mina, the same type of carbon that was mixed in one with the other. Now the problem is that we don't know who, when the kohen is bringing the carbon, he doesn't know who is the owner of the carbon. So in this case, it's not a problem. Zeh yikrav l'shem mishuhu, v'zeh yikrav l'shem mishuhu. The kohen brings both of these karbanis oila, and even though he doesn't know who the owner is, but the kohen has in mind, or he says that I'm bringing this carbon l'mishuhu, whoever the owner is, even though he doesn't know, but he just says l'mishu for whoever it is. Rashi, this is Rashi's pshat. Tosfos here actually says that in such a case, if you don't know who the owner is, you don't have to say that you're bringing it l'mishuhu. You just are makriv it stame, and stame is kalishma. It'll be for the right owner, whoever it is. And it's the same thing also in the previous case when it says that you had the kochim animal that got mixed with the chulin, and then it said before that you redeem it and you take the money. What happens over there is also you having now two people that are bringing a carbon from this mixture. One person that's bringing the one that was kochim, and the other one that you're selling the chulin to, that he's now also using it as carbon. But over there you also don't know who the owner is. Same thing over there in the previous case. So the Kohen brings it for each one for whoever the right owner is. Now, if the case is it's kachim bekachim, two different kinds of kachim, karbanis, that got mixed with one another, but it's min b'sheinim minay. It's two different types of karbanis. One is a ayla, one is a chatas. So now you can't have the kohen just bring these two karbanis and just have in mind that it'll be for the right owner, because it's two different kinds of karbanis. They have different halachas. So you don't know which animal you're going to do what kind of aveda with it. Different kinds that you do with the blood differently, they're the different aveda. So what do you do in this case? Yiru achi yistav. So here as well, you leave it until it grazes and it gets a mom, and then v'yamachru, it's sold. In other words, it's redeemed. And then v'yavi b'dmei hayafish behen miminzeh. So it's possible that the oila that's mixed in here was the better quality animal. So you're going to have to bring from the better, more money. In other words, the value of the better animal, that has to be brought for an oila. But also miminzeh. Again, you bring for the better quality animal the money that you have of the better quality animal for this man, for this carbon, and also but you're also going to have to bring for the value of the better quality animal for the other carbon that got mixed in it, because you don't know which one is which. Now you don't have that much money here, so v'yafsid hameiser mi beisai. So then you're going to have to lose. You have to give in to this from your own some money to make up for what's lacking here, because you have to have for both the oila and the chatas that got mixed in for the better quality animal that may have been a oila or a chatas. Another case, the last case here, this arvo.
Before we get to the last case, when is a carbon considered a carbon? Like what period?
As soon as you makdish it. The moment you makdish the behema, becomes an oila, becomes a chatas.
Before you come to the base of English, you say in your house, I'm taking this. Correct.
You makdish it as a oila, becomes oila. Now you can't bring it as a chatas. If it gets mixed in with a chatas, you can't say, okay, forget about it being a oila. No, it's designated as a oila. So now you have a problem. You can't bring it as anything else. This arvo, if you have a carbon, let's say a carbon oila, that got mixed in with what? B'b'choir or b'maiser. It got mixed in with a b'choir or a maiser. So now b'choir and maiser, the halacha of how it is brought as a carbon is different than the yayla. And they're mixed. You don't know what is what. And here there's another detail regarding the b'choir and the maiser, that they cannot be redeemed. That's a unique halacha regarding b'choir and maiser. When they get a mum, they're not redeemed. They have to be eaten like with a certain halacha, the way a b'choir and maiser is eaten, but not redeemed. So what do you do over here in this case? Yiru achi yistavu. You allow it to graze until it gets a mum, and then you take money and you say this money should be in the place of the carbon oila that's mixed in it. You still don't know which one is the carbon oila, but you just take money and you redeem and you say that this money should be in the place of that carbon oila. But now from these animals that you have in front of you that are mixed, it could be each one of them is the b'chair and the maiser, and that b'chair and maiser you cannot redeem. So what you're doing is you're only redeeming the oila, and the b'chair and maiser remains the b'chair and maiser. So now v'yeyachlu, all these animals here, since you cannot redeem the b'chair and maiser, you don't know which one is the b'chair and the maiser, so they are still going to have to be eaten ke b'chair or ke maiser. Like the halacha is when you eat a b'chair and maiser that got a blemish. A b'chair and maiser that get a blemish are not brought as a carbon, but there are certain halachas how it has to be eaten. Rashi here brings, you can't shecht it and sell it in the butcher, you don't weigh it like regular meat that you sell in a butcher. There's certain halachas of how it has to be eaten properly as b'chair and maiser. So you have to do both things of it. You have to be machmer on both sides. On one hand, you have to take money and redeem the oila wherever it is, because you don't know which one is the oila, and then from that money you bring a carbon oila. But on the other hand, these animals here will still have to be eaten on the level of a b'chair and maiser. The Mishnah concludes, hakoil yichayil le'sarif. All kinds of animals of kachim, it's possible for them to be mixed with one another. Chutz menachatos v'asham. If it's chatas and asham, these are two kinds of karbanis that will never be mixed with one another. We'll see the Gemara will explain, a chatas cannot be brought from a ram, and a asham is only brought from a ram, so they will not get mixed with one another. So the Gemara begins and explains the first halacha in the Mishnah. So the Mishnah said that when you have a carbon, called Zevochim, that was mixed with the Chatois HaMeisais or B'Shara Niskal and etc., Fila Achas B'Riboy. Even 1 in 10,000. Now the way the Gemara understands now this language of the Mishnah, Fila Achas B'Riboy, it means one carbon that was mixed, even with 10,000 of the Chatas HaMeisais. Meaning there's many more of the forbidden ones, and there's only one of the carbon that you want to bring as a carbon. So the Gemara asks, if you read the Mishnah that way, so Maya Philo. So what is the meaning of it? It says, even if there's 10,000s of the ones that are forbidden, if there's so many of the forbidden ones, obviously you can't say that it would be batal b'roiv. So the Gemara explains, you're right, you have to understand the Mishnah the opposite. The Mishnah means to say, all these karbanis that you have, the chatois hamesais, the forbidden ones, whether chatois hamesais or the shayra niskal that got mixed in with a carbon, afila achas beriboy, echad that is, even if it's only one of the forbidden ones, beriboy with 10,000 of the karbanis that are allowed, yemusu kulam. Even though there's so many of the karbanis that are allowed here, and it's only one that's aser, still it does not become batal beroiv and yemusu kulam. You all have to be left to die. Okay, now the Gemara asks and what it says in our Mishnah here. In fact, the Gemara, Tanina Chadazimne, the point of the halacha that it says here in the Reish of our Mishnah, but we learned this halacha already in another place, in another Mishnah. This is a Mishnah in Masechta Tumura. There it says also the same thing. Kol asurin legabi mizbeach, all the animals that are also to be brought on the mizbeach, oisrin b'chol shehein. If they get mixed in with a carbon, they are going to aser even kol shehein, even if it's one amongst many. Does not become batal. And there the Mishnah also goes through the list that it says in our Mishnah, Haroiva, Vahanirva, and it also says the other ones that it says over here in our Mishnah. So why does it have to say in our Mishnah this halacha? Really, the Gemara is asking, and the Mefarshim say that the Gemara could have just asked from the Reisha of the Mishnah to the Seifa of the Mishnah here. The Gemara is asking that you have the halacha in the beginning of the Mishnah, that when you have those animals that are asa b'hana, that get mixed in with karbanis, so it doesn't become batal. Then the Mishnah goes on to say the other halachas regarding other kinds of animals that are not asa b'hana, but cannot be brought as a carbon. When they get mixed, they also don't become batal. Why is it necessary to say that other halacha? And also in Masechta Tmura, where it says that halacha. Amar Rav Ashi said, Amrita l'shmaite kamei de Rav Shimi. I said this halacha in front of Rav Shimi, and he explained va'at tzrichon. And he explained why it's necessary to say this halacha regarding those animals that are not fit to be brought as a carbon, that get mixed in, that they're not batal. Because if we would only say the halacha over there, so havamina hanimili gavoya, those animals that are not fit to be brought as a carbon, they're allowed to have a no. Any person can have a no of this list of animals, but they're just not fit to be brought as a carbon. I would say maybe only there I say that they do not become batal in this mixture with other carbonis. And I say that you can't bring it on the Mizbeach. So this is all a special chumrah regarding bringing on the Mizbeach. But when it comes to a case where it's something that's also ba'ana for a hedyet, like the case of the Shayra Niskal, then now we're going to say because of this that the Isra to the hedyet will aser it all, that it has to all be left to die. Maybe over here I should say that here we're not only discussing regarding the Mizbeach, but here we're discussing also something that's also even for a hedyet. So maybe here you don't have that chumrah. Maybe I should say that it does become batal b'roiv. So therefore you have to say both cases. But now the Gemara says also the opposite. If it would only say the first case of our Mishnah, regarding the case where a shayra niskal, which is also even for a hedyet, gets mixed into a carbon. And I would say over here that it does not become batal. So I would say, I would then say, because this is something which is not just forbidden for the Mizbeach, but it's usher completely. It's usher for anybody. So therefore, it's a stronger level of isser, and therefore that is the reason why it does not become batal. Avulhani, but then the other list that it says here in the Mishnah, the Bach here adds in, the Lav, Yisuri, Ano, Ninu, they are not usher bahana, they're just something which is usher for the Mizbeach. So Eime, Loi, I would say maybe that when they get mixed in with the karbonis, that are roi for the Mizbeach, it should become batal b'roiv. So tzrichi, therefore it's necessary to say both of these halachas. The case where it's aser ba'ana, and also the case where it's aser for the Mizbeach. Okay, but now the Gemara asks, the lav yisuri hano nino, regarding the case where it's not yisuri hano, this whole list that it says here, roiva, nirva, so on, all these cases of animals that are just not roi for the Mizbeach. They got mixed in with animals that are roi for the Mizbeach. It says that here in our Mishnah, so why does it have to say it again in the Mishnah in Tumura? So even regarding this case, even regarding the animals that are not asabana, they're just also to be brought in the Mizbeach. In our Mishnah, in the second case of our Mishnah, it says this halacha regarding the karbonis that are mixed in with animals that are not right for the Mizbeach, and that's the same Mishnah in Tmura. Talks about these kinds of animals that got mixed in with other animals that are mutter ba'ano, but not right for the Mizbeach. So why does it have to say this Mishnah here and in Tmura? And it says the Gemara, Mi katani bekama. Does it say in how much they got mixed in with? Kol shehein hasam ketani. This, that of even if it's just one amongst many tens of thousands, that it says only the Mishnah in Tmura. Right? Over here, if you look in our Mishnah, in the first case, it says in the Mishnah over here, afilu b'riboy, that even if it's one amongst 10,000. But in the second case of the Mishnah, it didn't say that. In the second case of the Mishnah, it just said it got mixed. But it doesn't say this addition of this point, even if it's one amongst many. And that detail it only says in the Mishnah in Tmura. There it says b'chol shehein. That's why it has to add over there in that Mishnah in Tmura. So the Gemara asks, so v'nisni ha v'loy boy ha. Okay, so in the Mishnah in Tmura it says it all. It says also that detail that even if it's a carbon that gets mixed amongst many, even just one, it will not become bottle. So why does it not just say the Mishnah of Tmura and v'loy boy ha? You don't need our Mishnah. And so the Gemara, no, but in our Mishnah it says another detail that it does not say in Tmura. In our Mishnah it tells you what's the solution. What do you do over here in such a case where you have a carbon that, and you could have even many animals of carbonis, and only one of this one that's forbidden for the Mizbeach got mixed into them. So what do you do now? Our Mishnah gives you the solution that you have to redeem it and so on. Therefore, over there it says the halacha of the mixture, even if it's a kol sheken, and over here it says the solution for this. So therefore, you have to have itzrich, you have to have both of them. Okay, the Gemara continues here with another thing from a Mishnah of Avodah Zarah, goes into the next time. Okay, we'll continue next time. It's Hashem.